So who are you?
My name is Adam, also known as Chills32 on Reddit and on Discord. I hide on Reddit and in this small area of Discord that we've created called the Clubhouse. I started the Clubhouse well before it became a server on Discord. I became a single father not too long ago, and as part of the transition to that with my young son, we created an environment at my home that we called the Clubhouse, where we could come and kind of enjoy the aspects of our relationship in this environment, and Nerf is usually the focus. So he's grown up in the last year and a half around all the mods I've done, all of the practicing and tinkering I've done, and he knows what the Clubhouse is. And it's more than a place, it's kind of a feeling, it's kind of a mentality where, you know, in reality, if you've seen, Mickey Mouse Clubhouse, it's a place where people go and they like to be there, and they are there for a reason, and they're there to enjoy the common good. And what I will say is, not everybody always has to get along. And so if you don't like it, that's okay. I don't like everybody. That's obvious. And at the Clubhouse, we're open to that. So, what we're trying to provide is a place where data can be provided, some fun can be had, and now an opportunity to kind of bring some modding back to our community, because we think we can provide some insight to some of the things we've seen that may or may not spark some views, spark some mods, and maybe get us going some more.
Yeah, I remember well, I'll say who I am first, so doesn't sound like a one-sided conversation. I noticed it does say Rad Blasters in the corner. That's not my real name. My real name is actually Nick, and I go by Pballwiz24 on all those social medias. But I remember reaching out to you. Like, I saw a couple of your videos on Reddit, and they were really, high quality, in-depth stuff with different camera angles and shooting galleries. And I'm like, I think he might actually be an asset to what I'm doing. So let me see if he'll make something for me. And then we were talking, I think it was just in the Reddit app itself, right?
Yeah.
Something like that. And it was getting so clunky. And we're like, there's got to be and then you wanted to talk to someone else too. And we're like, how do three people talk on here? And I remember we were like, we didn't even know, at least I didn't really know that Discord was what it is at that point. And so I'm like, oh, I think I created, here's how you do it. You create a server, and then invited you and Joe in there. And it was just the three of us in that server for a little while. And then, what was it? Probably like a month later, you made your own, and then somehow, maybe it was Meeker who kind of opened the floodgates, but then people kept coming in. So how do you feel about the current state of that server? Is it what you thought was going to happen, or is it, you have more plans?
I didn't really have any plans for it. The real motivation initially for the actual Clubhouse server was pretty selfish. My lack of social media is because of some social media anxiety that I have. I am very nervous. I don't have a Facebook account. I don't have anything else because I never did that in my married life, and I just never adapted it. And I like to talk in person. I like to know who and when and what I'm talking to, and the anxiety part of it comes because I feel very obligated in the relationship and the vesting that I do with the people I engage with. So when I was on the broader servers, I felt too obligated to too many people, and I personally could not dictate how I wanted to vest, and I was too sprawled out, and it made me not enjoy myself in the hobby space. So creating my own server made it so that if you were there, you came and you knew what it was supposed to be like and who it was and what it was. And you don't have to positively contribute. You can sit there and just watch and listen, but negatively contributing is not tolerated. And that's a very broad term. What is negatively contributing? Well, when you're there, you find out. It kind of runs itself. So I don't think there's any rules in the rule thing. So, and that's kind of how I wanted it.
Yeah, and I don't think we're here to like get into gatekeeping or any of the other like toxic parts that can come with a hobby like this. So I think your server is kind of a little bit of a safe haven, and I don't think you really had to do much as far as moderation goes. I think it just
Mm-mm.
kind of happens. Like that's the feel of that server, and it's been cool to see people kind of gravitate towards it and make it more like the go-to as opposed to like, at least for me, I was in like 3 or 4 servers at the time, but like I don't feel like I miss anything by not being in other servers at this point. So I don't. It kind of happened organically, I think, and I
Yeah.
think you should be proud of what it looks like right now.
And one of the things I really like that I've seen, especially with the newer subs, is that people are taking initiative, and I love that. If there's something that people are doing or they like and it deserves a separate channel or sub, I mean, you have that and you can own that though. So like if you want one, then that will be yours. And if it gets screwy, then I'll probably delete it. But if you like it and you're good at it and you keep it tidy, that's your thing, so have it. That's what this place is for, and invite the people that are interested in that. Like, I don't particularly know much about AEGs. That's the newest one. I don't
Yeah,
really go in there much. But the point is, there's a lot of people in there talking a lot of stuff. That's cool. So great, do that. That's what this is for.
right. Well, I think a spin-off of that server is what we're hoping to do here and kind of show like a video representation of the things that are going on in those chats. So for this first episode, I know we had some ideas about what we wanted to talk about, and the most pressing one I think is the new Dart Zone Mark II. So what do you want to take a look at with that blaster?
So the things I want to take a look at on the Mark II are what is different from what's been presented by all of our favorite YouTubers. And today I've watched Addie and her discussion on using it competitively, and I think that really helped me figure out what we can provide, because a lot of people are going to buy this blaster and use it a variety of ways. I don't know competitive Nerf. I saw the way she used it, and it makes so much sense, but I don't know if I could do that yet. So what we can provide, though, is almost instantly when we got this, we have enough examples of people that have hobby and tuning experience of blasters and modding blasters, that we can sort out any irregularities in performance, any variances in performance, and try to understand why. Because in reality, all of these items have a very similar concept for how a dart is propelled out of there. It's how you store air, how much air, and with how much energy, and how you're capturing that air to get it out. So I think what we've seen from all the reviews on the Mark II is it's probably the best pistol size item that has been delivered for our hobby. It's tiny, it shoots hard, and it's available. And there's not many problems with it out the gate. And then we found out that there might be some quality problems, or at least something that we consider quality problems. In the clubhouse alone, with the limited scope that we have for members there, I want to say half of the reports coming in were of errant FPS data, and that just means your results aren't steady. And what that results in is, on the field, shots not going the same place every time. Now, you don't have to be super hypercritical and be really, really tight, but having some shots show up on Caldwell chronographs in the 60s, 70s, 80s, basically farting out of the end of the barrel, and then others having blasters like I got one that was 140 all the way through, and you saw Drac and most of the main people, they all had great blasters. So the thing that we can cover is, what did we do when we saw that? How did we approach it? And what have we come up with?
Yeah, and I actually was that guy that was farting out the 60 FPS one. So I got mine here, and what we ended up kind of looking at were a couple different things. One, as soon as I cracked mine open, there was some discrepancies at least reported of what the barrel was. So mine, you could see I am orange, bronze, whatever, anodized. Some people weren't sure if the anodizing was all the way through. And I'm like, it's really hard to not anodize the middle of a barrel. So I'm guessing it is. And turns out I think most of them are pretty much identical to this. But the one thing that you noticed was different than mine is I have the manual chamfer on both ends. whereas you only had one end that was chamfered, and I think the end that went into the gate was not, and it was only the external one that was.
No, it was the opposite. So the
Opposite.
one that was in the gate was chamfered. And so my early reports are, hey guys, please make note that, the barrel is one directional.
Mm-hmm.
And then you got yours, and we saw that it doesn't appear that way in some
Right.
cases.
Right. And so just looking at this from I used to be in prototyping, machining, and injection molding, and I'm like, this was anodized and then they cut it up. So both ends of mine have clear marks on it from where the blade had chopped up the barrel. And even on one side, it looks like the anodizing was damaged on the inside. So anodizing does add to the tolerances of the internal ID. So you don't want to have like blemishes in there or anything that's not consistent. And I get it, you can't go too crazy with this little piece of barrel inside of what essentially is a toy. So I first started messing with the barrel, and you kind of turned me on to the various different barrel lengths that I have. So I have some here.
And I think the key, though, is that's an identifiable physical difference that we noticed in just 2 samples.
Yep.
And on mine, when I looked at the barrel, I thought, wow, they did a nice job. I thought, hey, look, they did this on purpose on one side. The other side was super clean. And I'm thinking, awesome.
Right.
And then you got yours. So, but that type of noticeable physical difference is something that may attribute to some of the irregularities.
Right. So the first, I kind of wanted to take an approach of eliminating each piece one by one. So the first thing I did was take some of the 509, which is pretty much the aluminum equivalent of that 13 millimeter that's in there, minus the anodizing. And so the first thing I tried was a barrel that I think it was the same size or maybe even a little shorter, just to see if it could be more consistent over the chrono. And it really was it was better, but it was still struggling with probably more so the variance in the darts. Because how the AF Pros are kind of, your best bet is to shoot them once, and then from there it's going to probably degrade a little bit. I showed you that picture of the two right by side, and the foam was clearly missing on one of them from
yeah. Taking those through flywheel blasters definitely will eventually wear these awesome darts out.
Right. So then I went out and got some new ones and still had some inconsistencies. So I started looking at more of the parts. And one thing I noticed on the gate itself, there is a tooling mark on the inside. And so how these parts are usually manufactured is you have a clamping tool that's going to come together like this, and there's a cavity on either side. But when you also have a feature that's going through the center of the part, a lot of times they'll use inserts, and they either retract on their own, or sometimes you even have an operator putting those inserts into the tool and then closing it on there. And when the tool opens up, the operator pulls the part out, takes the inserts out, and resets everything. So what's inside of here is a clear tooling mark where there's actually a lip. So there's a little lip right where the dart is kind of sitting inside of this. As it's waiting to be shot, it's inside of this. Sorry, I'm down here. If there's a tooling burr, the dart is going to feel that on its way out.
Yep.
So can't really do much about this. It's injection molded. Probably sanding it down would be even worse because you lose all the rest of the smoothness inside. So the next thing I did, I said, well, I'll just draw something up. So just real quick, put one of these together. Sorry, I keep thinking on my computer. This is a replacement for that part. And so you can see side by side, they're going to sit in the same place, but one thing's noticeable on the new part is that you have more barrel length. So when you put this together, you've actually added, pretty much one dart length worth of barrel inside the blaster. So this is now the sealing face on the what is essentially like a hybrid pusher plunger on the blaster.
Yeah,
so,
and just real quick, I just want to say, when I opened mine and I got out of the box smooth results, I did tons of barrel testing and plunger testing, and I seal testing, and I never got irregular results. I got different results and I think I tried 8 different barrels of different lengths and type, but they were all consistent. So I don't think I had anything wrong with mine, just like a lot of people do. And this is just showing not only was your barrel different than mine, your dart gate was different than mine physically.
Yep. Yep. And who knows if that's from a different tool and they have multiple tools making the same part, or, you know, tooling stuff wears out after X shots. I wouldn't think ours would be too far apart because we both kind of ordered on the same day and it's probably all part of the same batch. I don't know if maybe we can, that's maybe the next thing we do is look at the serialization on these and see if there's anything regarding that.
It's on the bottom of the trigger.
Yeah, so mine says PTXT 220-0820.
So does mine.
Exactly.
I don't know if that, yeah, PTXT 220-0820.
Yeah, so I'm guessing that is August 20th at the end.
Yeah.
If that's true, these were made on the same day, or at least assembled on the same day. They probably put this stamp on last. So who knows, in different hands assembling things. But just to finish the story on the gate, you can see on this one, it only has just basically what you can see here to cross over before it's actually inside the barrel already. I just thought it'd be more consistent to have the dart inside the barrel when the blaster is fired. And sure enough, it did work for me. I would say that if I can, I'll throw up the screenshot of what the Caldwell said, but I was getting pretty consistent high 120s with the AF Pros. So we're still not necessarily hitting 140s with mine, at least, that other people have. So there's definitely more to it, I think, than some of the reviews. And I think we just together wanted to say, like, hey, if you're having some problems, here's some things you can do.
Yeah. Let me see if I can show you the concept that we're talking about, because I have my spam open, which in general is the same. Can you see this one?
Yep.
So what we like and what delivers things the most efficiently is you go from air to breech method right into barrel. And with that dart gate that's in there, you have an extra piece here. So you've got a seal on both sides that you're adding. Well, I guess this one would still be there. So it's one more seal that you're adding, and also another piece that has to have quality control. So what Nick has done, that he's essentially made it like this, except, you know, the plunger system is different, but, you know, you pull the slide back, your plunger goes back, and your you will seal it now directly into the barrel because we've provided this dart gate that you can affix your barrel into. And he made two versions, for brass and for aluminum. And I think it's just, you've now made your air delivery more efficient. That's one less variable, and it proved to help. So, yep. You know, it's like cross off that as a possible area of issue. You know, you can now move to, you've removed one seal and one whole section. So
just eliminating variables is really what the name of the game is whenever you're tuning any of this stuff. So
yeah.
I don't know.
You know, one thing, do you want to talk about the barrel lengths? Because I know that is something that a lot of people ask about just in general.
Yeah. In general, whenever you're changing the ID of a barrel, the size of the barrel that's compressing on the dart, the length is probably going to need to change in some way. If it doesn't, you're going to see a difference in either your standard deviation or your FPS. So that's one thing that is different between yours now good performing stock one and mine, is that I made it all the way up to the front. So the barrel's a little bit longer. I don't know what your opinion is, but I would guess the 509 is just slightly tighter than the 13 millimeter.
Yeah, it is. It's a couple hundredths. You know, there was 13 millimeter and the 509 is tighter. I think what I found to be interesting is Dart Zone did a lot of research here, and I do believe that the length that they chose total was pretty close to what the equations will show. Yep. I don't typically go by equations, but you know, we had our buddy Brad Phillips there, who is a master at that. And if you take the size even of that oval the approximate optimized barrel length is 110 to 120 millimeters. So with the dart gate that they have there, that comes stock with it, it's 12.8 ID. It's tight, or even, I think it's 12.8. So that's acting as effective barrel length. So even though you've removed that, you haven't added a ton, because that was already part of the barrel, which in my head doesn't quite make sense, because you've got to transition from a tight gate into a barrel that we also want tight. So I'd be interested if there is any data or research on something that I've heard people talk about, which is kind of the quick ring or the quick burst, where your seal and the pop, it's like if you've got a short plunger tube and a small barrel, you want it to pop quick. And so maybe it's trying to hold it in that tight 12.8, but it's still only transitioning to 13. Whereas when you go to all 509, now you've got enough to where you're engaging that dart like their dart gate was. So, you know, I do know for those out there that would like to make this go up to 200 or whatnot, it won't. I really don't think so. I do think that somewhere right along where the barrel is now in total is pretty close to where you're going to maximize your efficiency. But I think the key for this little guy, and like with Addie showing it today and having footage of, you know, her kind of doing drills and how she would use it, making this shoot the same every time is what I think is key for everyone. You can't be running around relying on this for 6 shots and have 1 or 2 of them not be 120.
Right. Yeah, and that's kind of what we've seen with the couple guys that have put in the spring spacers and kind of increased the spring load, is that I think Digital Ben had the spacer and he also had my gate, but he was using 17/32 brass, and his max was 180, but he had some shots that were all the way down in the 130s. So your standard deviation is all over the place when you're chasing the higher number, I think, out of this. So what would your opinion be if you don't have issues with your blaster right now? Like, let's say you got one that's shooting in the 130s right out the box. Do you advise people try to chase any more out of this blaster if you have that, knowing that there's potential for once you crack that open, you may not get that back, or you may not get the results after your mods that you were really looking for?
So I think that if your blaster is not shooting well to start, that it probably will still not shoot well after you open it up. But if it is shooting well, I don't think opening it will cause a problem. I think if you have a good one that is performing how you like, you have a few options. Leave it or do what I did. Mine, I put a worker 9 kilogram spring in mine. I have the stock barrel because mine was clean. After all my barrel testing, I went back to the stock barrel. I did add some Teflon tape to it so that I felt like it had a nice, really tight seal in the dart gate. I still have the regular dart gate because mine didn't have any issues. And then to put a worker 9 kilogram spring in here, I had to sand down the last couple coils. So if you don't have that possibility, that spring out of darts for 100 FPS, I think is a good option, because lowering it makes it more usable for other play styles or other play people. My son now can use this, and with one that all it is a 9 kilogram spring, and I did kind of tune up the plunger tube. I have a different O-ring on there I felt was a little bit better seal, and the stock barrel, and it's 120 average, but it's only a 9 kilogram prime. So my recommendation would be to leave it as is, or open it to make it lower, because you may want to use it in different environments, and 130, 135 is a little tough for around the corner in your house.
Right. I'm just trying to look right now of, so I have the results of what mine was. So we're still at the stock spring level, and the max was 134, average of 125. So you got pretty similar average with a lower kilogram spring than what I'm currently working with post modification. So correct. I I think a lot of that has to do with the additional barrel length. And I do want to kind of make a, like, while we have the spacer for the barrel, I want to make an equivalent spacer in the front so that it's just sliding the barrel back a little bit. And I do want to test that. So you're still using the same barrel length. It just has a shorter gate. So I'll give that a shot in the future. But I mean, it's all really, what do you want the thing to do? If you're buying that to hit 180, I wouldn't recommend it. If you want to stay in the 150s and is working, I wouldn't touch it, honestly. And like you've done, if you want to hit a little less, I think probably just a spring load change is where you want to be. I wouldn't recommend going through and changing the gate and the barrels to lower your FPS, because that's just like kind of what happened to make mine consistent. You know, I probably would say I'd rather it be in the 140s, 150s, but I'm fine with it the way it is. It works great around the house. My kid's a beast, but he's 6 and he can still prime it. So I don't really want to mess with like spring spacers or anything like that. So probably going to leave this as is. And, you know, hopefully with the information that you and I provided, give some people some options with what they do with theirs when they get them. Because I know a lot of people still are trying to get them. They were sold out for a while. And that's where I'm at with the Mark II.
Yeah, I mean, I view this as the other blaster that I recommend besides the Mark 1.1. I know everyone has their own opinion on that, but I would buy this or a Mark 1.1 if you wanted to get in the hobby and weren't familiar with 3D printed blasters. And if you had the budget to move out of the Nexus and Aeon class of blaster up to these pro ones, I think it's a no-brainer, because, you know, and if you're not a modder and you get one that isn't good, you send it back, and I'm sure they'll give you a new one. You know, like if it's defective, it's defective. Like the fact that, I don't know, what if we had 10, 12 people have good ones? There are good ones out there. So if you have one that's not working right, you should get a replacement, which stinks, but that's still, you know, something you can consider. So.
Yeah, and I don't think we're trying to like sound warning alarms that they're all bad or anything like that. But I have seen like even some of the YouTubers that have put up their Crony results, they didn't mention they were bad, but they were lower than what they should have been. So it all comes to be what's your expectations for it. The one thing I wanted to mention though, there is a difference definitely between the Bamboos and the AF Pros in performance, just changing nothing. So that's one thing to consider. Look at the reviews and see what people got FPS wise out of those two darts, because the one you can walk into Walmart and buy, the other one you have to order. So if you're ordering this blaster and knowing you want to be in the Bamboos, I would advise you just order a bunch of Bamboos at that time too.
Yeah, that makes sense.
Yeah. So.
Oh, here's another thing. My son's left-handed, and the holster is not ambidextrous. But I just ordered a $7 one for that Boomco, what was it, M6 pistol from Out of Darts, and they have a left and a right, and I think it's going to fit perfect. So if you need a holster option, I believe there are some that are under $10 that are actually nice material. And even if you don't need one, or if you don't need a left-handed one, I think there's different options too that could be suitable. Cool.
So if we put a wrap on the Mark II there, so you want to talk about a little bit of future state, like what are some other ideas that you want to talk about on this channel, or people to bring in, things of that nature?
So one thing that I envision and that I always appreciate from the YouTubers that I watch is when they bring in we'll call it special guest. I've seen all of the big ones do it, like when Captain Xavier brought in C-Yard Nerf, and there was a youngster that I think was part of their family, and it just makes it more real. Or, you know, Addie and Beret or Bert. I mean, it's just silly, but it's another aspect. I don't think we have the silliness factor, but if we have a product that someone in the clubhouse is doing and is good at, I'd like to have them here to share it, you know, because there's a lot of things that people are doing that are awesome that, you know, a couple explanations on a video I think would really help the community education-wise. So bringing in a special guest would be neat. And then also, you know, something that I think you wanted to touch on is, can we prove our data? And so I think there might be some things that would be interesting to folks if we can prove it. You know, I have some records of 258 FPS out of a flywheel blaster,
That one back
with
there
half
to be,
darts.
that one right there to be exact.
So, you know, I know that that is of interest to folks. You know, how do
Right.
you get it that fast? How does it shoot? Does it tear the darts apart? Does it, you know, shoot them sideways? Are you lying? You know, all that thing, you know? So, you know, that could be a good topic, because I do think that there is a gap in understanding and even knowledge transfer for how to make flywheel blasters shoot higher than what we have seen. And I think we can explain how we approach that.
Right, yeah. I feel like if you polled the general public and said, how much can you get out of a dual stage flywheel setup that's full size? You pretty much hear 210. That's like what people say. So kind of showing that, no, you can do a little bit more. I think that may open some people's eyes as far as, hey, maybe I didn't align everything right like I thought I did. Here's some things to check for, things of that nature. And like you said, like, I feel like with the amount of people already in your server doing awesome things, like, I would say don't feel like you can't just approach us and be like, hey, I want to talk to you guys about this on your show. Like, I don't want it to feel like you have to wait for a special invite to be spoken to about what you're working on. I at least personally, come to me if you think you got something cool. We may say, oh, we're going to cover that later or something, but no one's going to fault you, I don't think, for being excited about what you're working on and wanting to share it with others.
Totally.
Well, I think we had a few other ideas too as far as the next episodes, but I think we'll take some feedback, right, of what people want to hear. If they want me to shut up, if they want you to shut up and get Meeker on here and have us regale them about the old days of Nerf Haven or whatever, just reach out and say, hey, that's what we want to talk about. That sounds really cool. We like what you guys are doing, or you hate it, whatever. We're a community, right? And want to make this what people want to be, what they want to listen to, what they want to watch.
Sure. Like, or if there's a topic you want to cover because you think we know it, you know?
Right.
And I like the challenge of trying to find the person that knows it if I don't, and bringing them in to ask the question, because anytime someone finds me and asks me something that they think I know, I feel really awesome.
Right.
So so that would be pretty cool if we could do that too, you know? If there's something that you want to know about, ask. And I think we can find someone that could talk about it. And it's about going down into the detail of it. Like, okay, let's open up a Pretty Fly 2 and show you how it's shooting a 240 FPS. You know, right. Let's show that so we can show the difference. Because I've got the dual stage Strifeoid that can't break 220, and I know why.
Yeah.
When I open the two up and compare them.
Sure. Yeah, and we have the ability to do like live chrono shots too, so we can do all that stuff. We can debunk or prove, you know, we'll do whatever. So I think I'm excited to talk to you about these and or work on these projects with you and film some more stuff. And hopefully there's a lot of people that want to get involved too. And I'm certain eventually probably like an open live community chat would be cool to watch at some point down the road too.
Yeah, or mod parties, you know, if people want to mod a certain thing, or a live challenge, you know, can you shoot better than me?
Yeah. Yeah. The world's our oyster when we're all working from home and can't go.
I know, right?
Right.
Yeah. All right, well, why don't we wrap up here? You know, I think this is a good first attempt, and we'll see how it records, and we'll see who even listens. But I like to do them, even if it's just for our record. Eventually, Our kids are going to want to know what the heck we did with all these toys.
Yeah, right. When it's all to ruin and someone uncovers an ancient USB 500 years from now, we'll be like, so that's what it was like.
Yeah.
All right, man.
I'm definitely. All right. Well, you guys take care. Thanks for listening. What are we calling this?
This is Clubhouse Foam Chat, CFC.
Yeah. CFC, Clubhouse.
Probably should have led with that, but you know, we're new.
I like it. So, you know, stay safe, and we'll talk to you soon.
Take care, everyone.